the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Guess what day it is? It's Thursday. That means tomorrow's Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Practitioner Brief. James Azar here. I got a very, very special guest on the show today. Anna Collard is joining me from Know Before. If you guys don't know Anna, she's like magnificent. She's awesome. She's amazing. And today she stones us with her presence. So I'm very excited about that. And Anna, first of all, good afternoon, because in your part of the world, it's like time for bourbon.
Yeah, nearly. Thanks, James. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here, folks. We've got a packed show today. This week has been unlike many that I've seen in security. There's been a lot of stuff. Considering we're in like in Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right? Like typically we see a lot of stories around awareness, phishing, business email compromise, but we're seeing the very technical side with the human element of things. That's what we'll be talking about on today's show. Before we do that, though, let's get to some of your comments. Good morning to David. Morning, Ashley. Good morning, Mr. McQuiggan, and happy Friday Eve. I believe this is Bob. Good morning to you, sir. Good. And Ashley says, we're almost to Friday. Hello, Anna. Yes. And James says, one of my favorite Know Before advocates. Anna, join the line of people who thinks Anna is one of our favorites. But before we do that, folks, a shout out to Know Before for their support of the program. Without them, this show would not be possible, obviously. All right. We've got some great stuff coming up here in just a moment. If you have not subscribed to the show, please smash the subscribe button right now. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I know, even Twitter. So just tune in there. And now, Anna, are you drinking anything special this afternoon?
I wish I was, but it's just lemon water.
Lemon water. I am kicking off my morning. I've got a newborn. For a lot of people know this, but I've got a 2-week-old baby at home, which means I sleep in 15-minute snoozes. So these double espressos come in so handy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I will say one thing. I kind of regret the amount of espresso I drank before baby came, because my tolerance to espresso is so high that I've got to reach like the 6th, 7th double to really get a full espresso effect. So it's exhausting. But coffee cup cheers, everyone. Anna's going to have her lemon water. I'm going to have my double espresso. But whatever you're drinking, enjoy it. It's Thursday. Coffee cup cheers.
Cheers. James, you look fantastic for a 2-week-old baby.
Thank you. A lot of people keep saying that, and I go, it's what people don't know is behind the scenes. My 16-year-old taught me a lot of makeup tricks, so I'm hiding a lot of bags under my eyes. It's great father-daughter bonding moments when my 16-year-old teaches me all the things around makeup. So but folks, here we go. Thank you so much to Eyal with a Mazal Tov. Really appreciate that, buddy. Let's get into what's going on today. I'm going to sprint through a few of these. There's a few stories I really want to focus on today with Anna. So some of this stuff, I'm going to get right into what it is and right into the mitigation of it. We'll start with this one where it's a Wslink malware loader that's running as a server, and it executes modules in memory. And you go, why is this significant? Because this is untraceable. When you think of, we're going to talk about SolarWinds next in just a minute. But when you think of how SolarWinds was executed, essentially entering their CI/CD pipeline, integrating into part of their code development, being able to insert lines of code without even being detected. This one's extremely significant because ESET has called it Wslink. It's an undocumented malware. It stands apart from the rest because it runs as a server and execute modules in memory. There's no specifics available on the initial compromise vector, and there's no code or operational overlaps that tie this group to one specific threat actor or nation state. The firm also noted that it's seen a handful of detections in the past 2 years, suggesting whoever has this understands its power and isn't mass using it, but rather picking and choosing their victims and targets very, very significantly. Now, here's the part that should be a wake-up call to many of us that are practitioners in security. It's designed to run as a service. It can accept encrypted portal executables from any specific IP addresses, which is then decrypted and loaded into memory prior to execution. The client, i.e. the victim, and the server perform an actual handshake that involves the exchange of cryptographic keys necessary to encrypt the modules using AES. Here's what this means. Let me break it down in layman terms for some of you practitioners. I've got malware in your system. Your malware is not sending packets anymore. It's actually communicating to another server. I've whitelisted that server. It's now trusted. It's so trusted that your server and my server are shaking hands, which is what happens when you log into anything and are exchanging cryptographic keys. So now the handshake isn't just front, it's also backwards. We've got the backward handshake. And what that does is any encryption you've got, because you're using a private public key, the private public key has now been exposed. So they've got access to all of your encrypted data, and you won't even recognize it. Your EDR won't, your MDR won't, your XDR won't, nothing. It will seem like a legitimate transaction because there was a handshake and an exchange of cryptographic keys. This is significant. The modules actually reuse the loader's functions for communication keys and sockets, so they don't initiate new outbound connections, meaning that once they've exchanged the keys, this seems like a normal relationship within your environments. The findings come as researchers from Zscaler and Cisco Talos also disclosed another malware loader. We talked about it yesterday, Squirrel Waffle. My favorite food, waffle. Anna, do you like waffles?
Yes, I do.
Who doesn't? Exactly, right? But folks, this is very, very significant. There's no workarounds for this yet, but it's definitely worth looking at the IOCs and TTPs of this and going through your environments if you have the opportunity, or using your MSP or MSSP to take a look and maybe check for some of this stuff. We'll move on to this next one. SolarWinds outlines a triple build software development model to secure the supply chain. So there's a whole thing written about secure by design with SolarWinds. So you guys can definitely check this out. The company is talking about how they've spent $21 million on this stuff over the last, since the end of Q2. So definitely a lot to do with software development. I actually got to read part of it this morning. It's really good. It has some really good input in there, especially for those that want to do that. Worth a read. Link is in the show notes. You guys can check it out there as well.
What I found interesting, James, on that story is that whole power of three. So they really went with that triple protection all over. Like, it seems that they've hired two different external SOCs, and then they have the internal SOC. They're doing the sort of triple detection in terms of their development stack. So it's really interesting to apply that through the different processes. So I found that quite interesting.
It is. You actually brought up a great point, which is kind of they've gone that road. But, Anna, one of my things with this is SolarWinds essentially saying we're going to spend this X amount of money for an X amount of period of time to gain our reputation back, to keep customers. And then I wonder if that's even feasible over a long term. Right, the cost of having two SOCs, of having an internal one as well, 3 times over is really, really expensive. So I think this is kind of what I like to call throwing money at a problem, but not really solving it quite yet. Right, the way to solve it is to look downstream and upstream towards your supply chain. One thing I didn't see in there was how are they going to manage the intricacies of other people's environments, right? So SolarWinds, Microsoft was the #1 victim of SolarWinds, right? I mean, we saw a bunch of vulnerabilities in 0 days come out of Microsoft simply because of the SolarWinds. I didn't see that addressed there. I felt like that was lacking.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem generally with the interdependence with everyone and everything. Like it's no longer, it's not enough to look after your own environment. It's like a whole ecosystem. that we all sort of form part of, and you can't look at things in isolation anymore. But yeah, I agree. It probably is a bit of throwing money at the problem. I think there are instances where the power of 3 makes sense, like let's say in the backup world, you have like your offline, offsite, etc. In some way, I mean, I also remember back in the day we said, okay, you have to have like at least 2 different anti-malware systems in place to detect what the other one doesn't. It's true, like having 3 different SOCs, you have to have a lot of money for that, and I don't know if it's if it's efficient in the long run. But anyway, interesting.
Yeah, it's to me, like I said, the easiest job on the planet for any CISO is coming in after a breach. You don't have a budget problem. You're reporting directly to the CEO. The board's going to give you anything you want. And they're going to want, because they just don't want it to happen again. So to me, that's
what I found. I mean, just yesterday I was speaking to someone about, like how can we improve efficiencies and operations. And one of the things, not that I want to push for any South African security tech companies, but they happen to be South African, is the use of sort of honeypots. It's called canaries, like those sort of mechanisms that actually they don't cost a lot and they don't generate a lot of noise either. But when they generate noise, you know that somebody is in your environment, and it's really something that you can action on without having to focus on all the other noise that gets generated by your SIMs and log passes, etc. So that would be something that makes more sense in my view. That's more efficient. And doesn't necessarily cost that much, but it's obviously not a silver bullet either, but it's a good additional sort of detective mechanism.
Indeed, Eyal brings up a great point, which they're fixing the obvious. The supply chain attack happened already. How are they going to keep their network safe moving forward, which is something that's not really covered in this story. So we'll keep the whole SolarWinds feet to the fire because they should be held to the fire. We'll move on to this next one, a malicious NPM library caught installing password stealer and ransomware. This one specifically is emulating the popular kids game Roblox. The goal is to, 1, steal credentials, install remote access Trojans, and infect compromised systems with ransomware. They also steal tokens from kids. They do a bunch of other stuff in Roblox, including payment information. The bogus packages, which are named noblox.js/proxy or proxies, were found to impersonate a library called Noblox, a Roblox game API wrapper available on NPM and boasts nearly 20,000 weekly downloads, which each of the poison libraries downloaded for a total of 281 and 106 times respectively. According to the Sonotype researchers Juan Aguar, who discovered the malicious NPM package, the author of Noblox first published a benign version that was later tampered with and with the obfuscated text in reality in post-installation JavaScript. The batch script in turn downloads malicious executables from Discord's content delivery network, folks. Here comes Discord, that are responsible for disabling anti-malware engine, achieving persistent on-the-host, siphoning browser credentials, and even deploying binaries with ransomware capabilities. Anna, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's just interesting. First, I've got 2 thoughts that just popped into my mind when you read this. The first one is that ransomware or extortion attacks have sort of gotten the rep that they're just targeting sort of big money-making large organizations, but that's actually not the fact at all. I mean, they go after whatever they can, and including small businesses and individuals still. And the second one that I thought about here is they're using Discord as a distribution mechanism, and that's it's just an example of how any of these, chat mechanisms, whether it's Discord, Slack, Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever we may use, our distribution channels, and that they are being used by the criminals to, get us to. And the funny thing is, like, I don't know how that is on your side of the pond, James, but in South Africa, there's this whole security community that is hanging out on Discord, I actually haven't joined yet because I just can't fathom to join yet another thing. But I may have to because there's too many youngsters that are on there.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm on Discord, and I completely agree with you. There's a lot to do with this, but the Discord aspect of it is significant. Discord does have some security built in, but they found a way to actually bypass that security and get through the gate. Just because you have security, just someone tells you it's secure, doesn't always mean it's safe. Doesn't always mean it's secure. So keep that in mind, folks. I want to move to our next story. This one hits close to home. So an Android spyware app targets Israel in a 3-year-long campaign. This is seemingly innocuous Android apps that have been infecting Israeli users with spyware since at least 2018. The campaign continues until today. The spyware-laden apps were discovered by researchers at Kihoot 360, who found various apps disguised as social applications. Thurema, Al-Aqsa Radio, Al-Aqsa Mosque, Jerusalem Guide, PDF Viewer, Wire, and other application. The most abused app is one pretending to be Thurema, an end-to-end encrypted instant messaging application. The researchers believe the initial vector for these apps is a Facebook post or WhatsApp message that points victim to a website that hosts the APK and offers it for download. In some cases, the messages contain a Google Drive link to a supposedly important classified PDF document. All this is in Arabic, FYI. The target is then urged to download an APK that pretends to be a mobile version of Adobe Reader, but which is actually spyware. The researcher analyzed various samples and found the attackers used a wide range of different commodity malware for these attacks, including Spynote, Mobyhook, WHRAT, and 888RAT. These are commercial spywares with powerful functionality. They can do file exfil, call recording, location tracking, key logging, photo and video capturing, real-time recording, clipboard management, phishing, and shell command executions. In fewer cases, the Metasploit and e-secret RAT were found in the APKs. On both occasions, the actors had implemented additional custom code on top of the open source tools. These are signs that Hamas, APT-C23, a terror organization that controls Gaza, is behind the attacks that's been repeatedly linked with past Israel targeting campaigns. In October of 2020, they were uncovered for using Android spyware disguised as Thurema and Telegram against devices in Israel. So this one, again, very, very significant. A Google Play Store added again. Anna, your thoughts?
Yeah, I find that very interesting, particularly that they're using Thurema, because obviously with the whole WhatsApp privacy debacle, a lot of users or people are looking at alternatives, and obviously Signal, Thurema are part of Telegram are all part of that list. What that reminded me of as well is that whole Pegasus story where in fact our president allegedly was also part of that targeted list, and they used not just tricking users into downloading these like fake apps, but they actually used vulnerabilities. I believe it was even in WhatsApp that allowed them to install their spyware without any user intervention. So they just they did like a missed call on WhatsApp, and that allowed them to install the the actual spyware on the victims or the target's device. And I think the message here again for people is, even if it's something really sophisticated that doesn't require your click or your intervention, be careful that you update your apps, remove any apps you don't need. And then obviously in that case, make sure you don't click on any links that come in via WhatsApp. You don't download from anywhere other than sort of the official app stores, etc. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this one is these are the official app store. These are the it's the Google official Play Store where these apps are available. And Google does very little about this.
Yes.
Google, wake up already. What are you guys doing? Come on now.
But again, as the user, I guess you need to be really careful what you're downloading, it is so tricky because it looks the same.
You can get it sponsored. I mean, Hamas could get that app sponsored in the Play Store. So when you're searching for for Threema. That's the first thing that pops up is their app, not their original Threema. And again, little anyone can do about that. Our final story here before we wrap up today, folks, is the U.S. bans China Telecom over national security issues. This is one I've been advocating for about 3 years running. It's finally come to fruition. The United States on Tuesday banned China Telecom from operating in the country, citing significant, about damn time, national security concerns, further straining already tense relations between the U.S. and China. The move marks the latest salvo in a long-running standoff over a long set of issues, including our friends over in Taiwan, the poor folks over in Hong Kong, the Uyghur Muslims who are in concentration camps and re-education camps, over 1 million of them, trade and slave labor between North Korea and China, as well as technology oversteps. You guys can tell I take this one a little bit more personal than I do all the rest. But when you see tyranny, it is only right to speak for it. So the Federal Communications Commission ordered China Telecom Americas to discontinue its service within 60 days, ending nearly a 20-year operation in the U.S. after the PAX technology raid yesterday at the point-of-sale system by the FBI, Homeland Security, NCIS, and Customs and Border Protection. It's about time. And I hope that this is just the very beginning of a long trend, including how TikTok evaded yesterday a bunch of questions around how they share data to a Senate committee. We know that China is the #1 abuser of tech privacy, and we ought to hold them accountable. So good job by this administration. Good job to President Joe Biden and the FCC for continuing the pressure of pushing China and their policies out of the U.S. Anna, anything to add to this? I know that you guys are highly impacted by China in South Africa.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that, we don't have the pressure or the power that you have, and we're sort of in the middle. So when the US takes actions like that, obviously there's a part of, like, I personally think, okay, well, that's good, but I think Africa is so dependent on China, not just South Africa, the whole continent. And then it's difficult when we have to take sides because we dependent on both. But in a way, you have to, because you can't support the Chinese and then not, embarrass the American partners. So it is tricky for the rest of the world that doesn't have that kind of standing power. We are just like little fish, and we have to find our way through that. And it's tricky. It's not an easy answer, James.
It is. Absolutely. As folks, we're a little over time. I just want to wrap up with one thing. One, I want to thank Anna so much for joining me on today's show. I'm grateful. And how could people get in touch with you? What's the easiest way?
Via LinkedIn, I'm there as Anna Collard, or on Twitter, Anna Collard 3. I think those are the usual channels. I'm not really anywhere else much.
Folks, that's it for our Practitioner Brief today. Tomorrow I've got an awesome Tech Corner that will be airing with my good friend Yella from Know Before as well. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity and AI. You don't want to miss the discussion. We recorded it a few days ago. It was really, really brilliant. I didn't want it to end. I'll just say that. So having said that, check that out. That'll be available tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, folks, stay cyber safe. Cheers.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.